Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let me, all right, 12:25. We'll keep it relatively short and sweet. So, hi everybody. My name is Jonathan Austin, and the wonderful Miss C, who I knew so dearly when I was a student at CVHS, reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to come and speak on kind of everything that I've learned in my time as a student at San Jose State and in my early career at CISCO. So for context, I was class of 2017, so it's been quite a few years until then. But yeah, so I'll just get right into it. And if you're curious on any other details and anything that I talk about, or just want to reach out to kind of connect, my link tree is at the bottom right there, which has all of the social medias that you see right above it. And yeah, let's get into it. All right, so trip down memory lane first, a little bit about me. So I'm definitely very local to Castro Valley. Not going all the way back to elementary school, but I didn't have I couldn't find a picture from there. But I went to Castro Valley Elementary. Then I went to Canyon Condors for middle school. As you can try to find me in there. I look very, very fabulous. And then obviously I went to CVHS. And reason why I knew Miss Z dearly so much is because she helped us start the Wild Wombats Club, which is ultimate frisbee, which you can see on the bottom left there. But some other stuff that I was also involved in. I was really into music, still am. So I was really into musical theater and then also choir at CVHS. And then obviously I graduated. I'm an interesting character. People usually refer to me as, which I'm very proud of, as you can see in one of my graduation photos there. But I mean, that's just a little bit about me. I'm here to talk about kind of how I went from the caca stage of my life to, ultimately working at CISCO and where I am today in my career and academic studies and all that. So yeah, let's get into it. So in terms of what I was going to talk about today, I'm going to start with just kind of my experience of how and why at SJSU, San Jose State, very local school. And then also how I got to CISCO and why CISCO, why I like working there, and what kind of tips I have and advice that I have for people that are interested in, university, San Jose State specifically, or CISCO working in tech, or anything to do with engineering, to be honest. And then if there's any Q&A at the end, that should be it. So starting off, like I said, how and why SJSU? So I didn't really know almost anything about college. I just knew that my very financially responsible parents saved up for me to go to college, and that these things called AP classes boosted my GPA, and GPA was good. When I went to Canyon Middle School, I got like all A's. So I got the Golden Apple Award. And I was just all about performing super well. But ultimately, when it came to high school, I still did well. But I really didn't know what the yield of all of this hard work was, or what it meant, like what it was supposed to do for me after high school. It was very tunnel visioned when it came to high school. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just having fun in doing musical theater, choir, and all that. So definitely did not know a ton. So I ultimately only applied to state schools, just because of the fact that I knew universities were super expensive, and the fact that I didn't even know what I wanted to do yet. I didn't have the confidence or what I felt like the GPA or like the credentials to go to some really nice university. Not to say that San Jose State's bad, because as you can see, San Jose State is a really good spot for engineering. It's a good, what a lot of people refer to it as, like, good bang for your buck, because it is a state school. So it's going to be cheaper than, like, for example, like UC Berkeley or Stanford, for example. But it's still in the middle of Silicon Valley, which is just a quality that is very hard to beat, because, like, for example, Cal Poly SLO also has a very good engineering program. And I've met a lot of people that are from there that have very successful engineering careers. But it's, also very far away. So just the fact that it's so close to everything, a lot of tech companies like to hire from San Jose State for that specific reason. And obviously helps fund financially and time-wise and just people-wise the engineering program as a whole. So like I said, I didn't really know what I wanted to do yet. So I came in as undeclared. I originally thought I was going to go into education because I had worked my whole life working with kids, doing like summer camps growing up and babysitting little cousins or, tutoring or something like that. So I was like, oh, I took AP English classes in high school and those were pretty interesting. Then I got to college and then I was like, oh, shoot, wow, I don't like the English classes anymore. So after that, and also kind of trying to figure out what would best support me if I wanted to live in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, which is a very expensive place. Engineering is well known as a financially stable career. So when I kind of started pondering, I was like, okay, I want something that's like financially stable. I want to do something that's interesting to me, that's going to challenge me. So let me like rewind and figure out what I actually liked doing growing up to try to figure out what I would ultimately like doing later on in life. So I realized Legos were my favorite toy growing up, super creative, always loved to customize and stuff. Minecraft was one of my favorite games, just loved making stuff. And there's even engineering themes in Minecraft, like Redstone, for those of you guys that know. And then also I took an honors physics with Mr. Fottrell, and he is an awesome teacher. And I absolutely did terrible in the class. I didn't fail it, but I didn't do super well in almost every single unit except for the electricity unit, where we went over like circuits and stuff. And for some reason, like I couldn't understand the rest of the class, but like super easily, but this one just came to me a lot easier. So I figured that was a calling combined with like the creativity and engineering of like Legos and Minecraft. I was like, all right, electrical engineering is a major. Let's try it out. So I ended up working in my GE's general education requirements, for those of you guys who don't know, in taking the prerequisites for engineering classes like physics, chemistry, calculus, all that stuff. And then I eventually transferred into electrical engineering and started taking that stuff. So once I got into electrical engineering, what did I do? I joined a Formula Racing Engineering Club car thingy. Yeah, I don't know. There's probably a better way to put that. But in the bottom right there. So essentially it was an engineering club full of different engineering majors that designed and manufactured an electric racing car, which was definitely up the alley of an electrical engineering major. So I got to work on a couple stuff there for about like a year. And it was definitely a lot of work. So that's why I didn't do it for like longer than a year. But it was definitely a really good experience to get like hands-on experience, because it's not going to be all the time, especially in a major like electrical engineering, that you're going to get hands-on work. You might be doing like a lot of theory in some of your classes, and you still get to do labs, like the thing you see in the bottom left there, where you get to, go play around with the breadboard, make circuits and all that stuff. But taking the extra step further to get hands-on experience through a club on campus is like so critical, I would say, to really, improving your understanding of the subject and ultimately trying to build your career, which I'll talk about next. But moving on, in terms of day-to-day at university, because university is obviously not the only pathway after high school, but it's definitely a lot of work for the next roughly 4 years. I'm graduating in May for a total of 5 years, which is not uncommon for engineering because it's very rigorous. But day-to-day, I did spend a lot of time doing homework or studying. Just because, like I said, engineering curriculum is definitely well known for being rigorous, but it wasn't without its fun too. Got to hang out with roommates, go out with friends. And I think that's just part of the college experience that most people do get to experience. And then in terms of answering if I thought all that work that I put into it was super important to getting to become a hardware engineer, which I am now, I would definitely say it's extremely relevant. Electrical engineering, the stuff that I learned there, especially because of the fact that San Jose State is so close to Silicon Valley, they understand what their students are going to do and work in. It was definitely very important, helping me get the fundamentals that I needed to understand what I'm doing at my job. So definitely very important, but that's not to say for every single engineering major, your major or going to university is super critical. Like, for example, software engineering boot camps are definitely becoming more and more of a thing. And if you haven't heard of those before, it's almost like a trade school for software engineers. So I would just definitely say for electrical engineering, or if you want to be a hardware engineer, or like design chips for NVIDIA, or, go help design the hardware behind Apple's phone, like university is definitely one of the most common, if not best option, I would say, for getting that theory understanding, just because it's definitely can be very difficult to learn on your own. Whereas like coding, for example, is definitely also hard, but there's just much more resources and guides online or through boot camps to help you out with that. So yeah, it really just depends on the engineering major and also your own self-discipline, right? Because part of university is just helping drive you into doing it. So what I recommend the university pathway, and specifically electrical engineering at San Jose State, I absolutely know that it's personally worked for me. I don't think electrical engineering or San Jose State specifically, or just a university in general, is meant for everybody, just because, like I said, it has a huge dependence on your own self-motivation and work there. But, it's definitely changed my life for absolutely the better, just because of the opportunities and doors that it's opened up, just from, busting my butt in school, and then also career building, which, like I said, I'll talk about next. But yeah, I definitely would recommend it. So, like I said, I work at CISCO as a hardware engineer. When I started off in school, I had absolutely no idea to build my career at all. Like, my parents weren't engineers, which is something that I found was common in the engineering program. Like, they had like a lot of relatives or like parents that were engineers. Like, I had no idea. Like, I barely even knew what college was to begin with. So like I said, yeah, I didn't really have a great starting point, but that didn't stop me from, trying to just really throw myself into the deep end when it came to learning how to career build, right? So starting off, I knew that I did not have a network. I did not have experience with anything, even just making a resume. So I utilized my school's resources to go to career fairs and workshops that the College and Career Center, kind of put on. Or is it called College and Career Center at San Jose State? It's called the Career Center at the very least. Very similar to what the awesome College and Career Center does here at CVHS. But so obviously they, put on these resources and events to help people like me who didn't really know much about career building or how to get a job, how to get an internship, etc. So I went to like resume workshops, career fairs, and that's actually how I ended up landing my first summer internship. I always tell people when they ask me like how I got it, obviously there is a lot of proactivity involved with, like I said, going out of my way to attend these things, but there's also a certain degree of luck. I definitely got very lucky with the specific manager who didn't ask me a single technical question, but still hired me as a hardware engineering summer intern. He just really more so cared about my willingness to learn and my personality and my, work drive, which are all definitely very important soft skills that people don't exactly think about a ton when it comes to engineering interviews or jobs. But yeah, so that was my first foot in the door. It's my first relevant work experience, because like I said before, I'd only ever really worked with kids. So I was it was very hard to sell myself, other than the fact that, I'd done some projects in school. But ultimately, that was my first summer internship, which sadly was right when COVID started. So it was 100% remote. And I still got to do some cool stuff where I got to do some stretch assignments that I didn't necessarily kind of learn about a ton in school. But like I did some like computer vision and deep learning stuff. So the coin term there is like AI, but it was very interesting. Then after that, I realized that I now had like my foot in the door, like I said, to kind of network more and utilize it more importantly, because cold applications are what people typically default to. And when I say cold applications, I mean just going to a position that you find online, submitting your resume and saying, hey, I'm interested in the position. That's it. Like that's what typically is referred to as a cold application, but which is necessary to an extent. I mean, that's how I got the first internship, but I always recommend to people that networking and utilizing your network is by far the most, I would say, less time consuming than cold applications, and also more effective, just because of the fact that you have friends, your parents have friends, your friends have friends, your classmates, your professors. Ultimately, they're the ones who know you the best, and they're the ones that can recommend you for stuff or point you in the right direction or like connect you with somebody else. So that's ultimately how I ended up getting my summer internship in 2021 and coming back on a different team that I was even more interested in, because I utilized my network that I got and kind of started building already. And that was a lot better. I got to work in a lab for the first time. That's the picture in the top right. That was very interesting because I used some really expensive stuff that I could never afford, or that honestly my school couldn't afford. And it was very cool. It was my first time working in a lab, and it was definitely a really good experience. Very hands-on. which is what I was hoping to get, but then, COVID hit. So it's definitely very cool. And then ultimately I used my network again, and I started looking for opportunities to come back again for a second time, for a third time. And this was the 6-month co-op that I actually just recently ended last week, on another team that was even more fun than the previous one. Not to say that the previous teams were bad, but it's just I had an even better time. But ultimately, about I think 3 months in, just because of my work experience at CISCO already and the way I was performing in the current co-op, which essentially, if you didn't know, summer internships, at least at CISCO, usually last about 3 months. Co-ops will typically be a part-time or full-time role that are kind of like internships, but typically that you also do while you're in school. So about, like I said, 3 months in, I really liked how I was doing, especially considering that I was also doing it at the same time as school, part-time. And they're like, hey, how interested are you coming back full-time? I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to come back full-time. So they offered it to me, and I'll be coming back full-time on that team in August or September. So I'm on vacation right now and just finishing school. I'll be graduating in May. But yeah, so for day-to-day for hardware engineer, it can be a split up between, testing, like you see on the top right there, or just working at your desk, or, traveling somewhere, depending if stuff needs testing or you need to bring something to another building. But me personally, I really like the work environment at CISCO because we have standing desks and there's no cubicles. Like if you just need to ask somebody a question, you just turn around and you just swivel in your chair and then you ask them a question. And my team is super friendly. So it could literally be about anything and they'll help you. And in terms of work-life balance, that was something I didn't really quite start thinking about until I started interning at CISCO. And my first manager, kind of asked me about it. And that's kind of what he held very important in his life, especially in Silicon Valley in tech, where they work you very hard. And given that I have many more priorities in my life that are much more important to me than my career or work, like family, friends, my faith, just anything that is extremely important to me that I would never want to sacrifice because of some work assignment, right? So this is something that I think CISCO has supported really well. I've seen so many parents at CISCO seem to have really easy times with balancing their work with their family. And especially, like I said, in Silicon Valley, where it's just so hustle bustle, it's hard to find, especially from the stories I've heard of people at other companies. For example, I personally love Teslas. I want to own one in the future, but then I know that they also have a very go work culture. And I don't think I'd ever want to work there. So it's just important to think about. It's not just about the the pay, the compensation, or the job or the prestige of the company. It's also about how much PTO they give you. Is the work environment good to where your mental health is okay, right? It's just there's just so many more important things that I didn't realize until I actually started working. I was like, do I want this for the rest of my life, or do I want this at least for the next couple of years at least, right? Because people definitely move around. If I had to give advice to my high school self with everything that I've learned up until this point, and that I think has benefited me the most, like I mentioned before, proactivity is definitely something that really drove me to this point of starting off my career the way I wanted to and getting through school the way I wanted to. And I think a lot of proactivity is kind of halted or, set aside out of fear or not a lot of confidence in oneself. And I think I had a lot of that in high school or just growing up in general. I was really shy. But then once I kind of just threw aside, I make it sound so easy, definitely not easy. But once I started putting aside the fear aspect of it and just saying, okay, I'm going to go talk to this person. The worst they can say is no, right? I'm going to go talk to this person. I'm going to ask them about this opportunity, and I'm going to go be friendly and just push myself to, put myself out there. I think that is ultimately what has really pushed me through a lot of this stuff of just one hurdle after the other, just setting aside that fear part. So I would just tell my high school self to be really confident in myself and what I was doing, because ultimately that's what was going to lead me to success in career and in my life. So that would be, it's very general. If you ever wanted more specific advice, given the context of your situation, your personality, I'd be happy to talk about it. But yeah, it's very, very, very hard to go back in time and think about what you would do differently. But, other than engineering, I also did get to talk a lot about, some other non-technical stuff where I got to write for their Cisco blog, and they had me on as like an intern of the month and talked about some other stuff. And I got to file for a patent. That's not a lot of things. It's not often that a lot of students or, even early career people get to do that. So just a lot of cool opportunities outside of the day-to-day work at Cisco too. But yeah, so that's about it. Like I said before, if you're ever interested in chatting about anything that I've talked about or asking for more details or just chatting about literally anything, I love to talk to people, love to meet people new. So there's my link tree. And then I guess this is the Q&A portion. But thanks so much for having me. Thanks for inviting me to speak. And yeah, so that's about it.
Thanks, Jonathan. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really good to hear about your journey and the advice. So I hope that students watching this recording take that to heart. Yeah. Keanu, is there anything else we want Jonathan to share?
You talked a little bit about the work environment at working at your internship and at City Co-op. Can you give us a little bit more about what specifically makes working as part of a team in an electrical engineering environment? How does that work? Like, what's the benefits of having a good work environment?
Oh, the benefits of having a good work environment. Yeah, it's specifically in like kind of hardware, electrical engineering. Work environment is extremely important because, like I said, soft skills are not something that is on everybody's first mind when it comes to hiring, interviewing, or being interviewed. But it is so important because I've not necessarily on my team, but I've worked with other people on different teams where they're just maybe they're having a bad day, but they're kind of jerks, right? So the fact that the team that I'm coming back to be full-time on, the fact that regardless of the question or who you're coming to, they're going to be friendly and help you out with whatever task you're on, even if it's not even their own responsibility. Having that environment to where it's fueled by people just wanting to help each other helps you develop yourself in a healthy way to where you don't hate to go to work every day because you have to deal with people that you don't like, but that you also get to contribute to that environment as well. And then also too, it's not even just a work environment, my team specifically, of working and doing all your tasks, right? That happens, but they also like to really facilitate a really good learning environment. So for example, every single Wednesday, we do a lunch and learn where even some people from other companies that kind of just have stuff to talk about, whether it was a problem they had that week, they kind of just like to talk about it in that environment to where everybody can learn from it. So it's having an environment that's friendly, that is collaborative, and then also facilitates learning is so much more important than I ever thought it would be, just because of, like I said, the way it supports you. And yeah, I'd say that's my answer. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Maddie, do you have any questions, Jonathan? I have one more.
Another question that I think a lot of students sometimes have when they're considering engineering, how strong do you need to be in math, and what level math should you be at when you're leaving high school?
That's a great question because I've never got it before, but I just love that it was asked because it's not that I hold a lot of pride in it, but I was not in advanced placement math at all in high school. And I didn't even perform the best in math in general. I never took AP Calc or anything. I just got up to calculus. But so many of my friends that I met in engineering program, they're like, oh yeah, I did a calculus, what is it called? The AB, BC. I don't know. See, I don't even know what it's called. And I was I felt really behind at first, but I wouldn't say that you have to be super ahead of the game by the time you're coming out of high school at all. One, because I don't think personally, this is definitely very opinion territory, but I don't think being super good at math is truly what is the mark of a great engineer. It definitely helps with theory and fundamentals of understanding and just doing your homework and performing well on tests. But I'd say more of the importance of engineering specifically is kind of your willingness to innovate and think outside the box, because those are truly the, the people that make, the big impact, the ones who are, being doubted for their ideas, but then ultimately their ideas are the ones that really change like what the definition of is of like limiting, or, the roof, or whatever it is. So in terms of math, I wouldn't say I don't let that hold you back. I would say if you're really bad at math, but you still want to do engineering, it's okay to try it. But I would definitely say you have to be comfortable with math. And in terms of, like I said, levels, you don't need to be at a certain level going into college at all. But definitely going back to what I mentioned before, the proactiveness and drive are much more important when it comes to doing anything within regards to engineering, even math. So if you're willing to put in the extra hours to study, if it's something you struggle with a little bit more, go for it. I think that's what matters more.
All right, thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, I think that's about it. Yeah, just go follow your dreams, I guess. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
I think that's go do well and stay safe.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Recording.